So I was talking to one of my moots who has BPD, and I'm not gonna name drop, so don't bother asking. And she was trying to get me to explain how I process hierarchical thinking as a narcissist, which she didn't really understand. And I don't blame her because a lot of people don't understand this. So I'll just explain further because there is more similarity to BPD and NPD than most people realize, and there's a reason why it's in the same cluster. So I was thinking more about the conversation today, and I came to the conclusion that borderlines use just as much hierarchical thinking as narcissists, even though it might just be harder to suspect, it's still there. So a simple understanding of hierarchy is basically who's on top and who's at the bottom, and borderlines pretty much try to craft their identity in subservience and subordination, at least before they split. So they find, or at least try to get, a lot of security in being in alignment with somebody else that they view on top. Identifying too much with superiority is detrimental to narcissists just as much as identifying with subservience is just as detrimental to borderlines as well. Whether or not your identity revolves around being on top or being at the bottom, both are a result of hierarchical thinking. Narcissists and borderlines both split from seeing things in both top and bottom. The mask of narcissism is to escape feeling at the bottom. The mask of infinite subservience is, to get validation of, oh, you're so helpful. I'm glad you're on our side. I'm glad you're with me, i.e. burying the same thoughts of feeling like you're at the bottom. But just like how narcissists can't keep an infinite mask of superiority, borderlines cannot keep an infinite mask of subservience. That is why we both split. When borderlines end up splitting from their typical subservience, it looks no different than a narcissistic rage. Both narcissists and borderlines end up thinking the same thing. Nobody actually cares about us enough, at least we would think, or nobody's actually grateful enough for us. Again, at least we would think so. So I'm well aware that lack of empathy is a specific criteria listed in the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, but I call into question just how inherently more empathetic a borderline is in comparison to a narcissist. So when it comes to having a favorite person, that's going to test your morals a bit. Are you really going to fight tooth and nail for someone that's supposedly, your favorite person, even though you know you shouldn't? They're your favorite person, right? Favorite person might sound better than narcissistic supply, but you're not going to convince me that those two terms are not coming from hierarchical thinking nonetheless. So if you try to take away a narcissist supply, of course you're going to be seen as a threat. If you try to come after a borderline's favorite person, of course you're going to be seen as a threat. So just because you're a borderline and your selectivity isn't as noticeable as a narcissist, I'm not gonna act like it's not there. Fucking favorite person having ass.